Make sure your insurance doesn't come up short. Get gap cover with ALA. For more information, follow the links in the description.
Hello everybody. Ask just about anybody in Britain what the best kind of car is, and they'd say a hatchback. What's the best kind of hatchback? Well, a hot one, naturally. What's the best hot hatch? Of course, the Golf GTI. And which of them in recent memory is the one to buy? Well, it's the Mk7 or 7.5. And in today's video, I'm going to be talking about why it is that very few people actually did get one. Car in production for as long as the Golf will always have its low and its high points. The Mark 1 and Mark 2 are regarded today as a genuine icon, a timeless piece of design that was in its day instantly well regarded and continues to be adored by fans from around the world. Unfortunately, the Mark 3 turned into something of a low point, with the GTI version being slower than the earlier cars. They did begin to improve things for the Mark 4 before they gave the model a complete refresh for the much improved Mark 5. This then morphed into the Mark 6, and once again for the Mark 7 they had a new clean sheet design based on VW's MQB platform, and this was a car that people really fell for. The 7th generation of Golf landed back in 2012, was facelifted, turned into what's known as the 7.5 in 2016, and then taken off sale around about 2019 to 2020 and replaced with the generally unloved Mark 8. Which is a car that I think is often unfairly dismissed, because if you were to ask anybody what they don't like about the Mark 8, they'll say the same thing. It's got horrible touch-sensitive controls in it, an infotainment display that's needlessly fiddly and clearly designed to look a bit like a rubbish version of an iPhone, and it's very expensive. Get past that though, and it's actually a very, very good car. But not the one I'm driving today. Instead, this is Izzy's 2020 Golf GTI Performance Pack. And what exactly does that mean? Well, for this generation of the GTI, the facelift of the 7th iteration, the regular car got 230 horsepower. For just under £1,000, you could then get the Performance Pack, which gave you an extra 15 horsepower for a grand total of 245, torque of 273 pounds-feet, that's 370 newton-meters, a very, very healthy figure. You also then got slightly better brakes and a sort of limited differential called VAQ. It is a Haldex system up the front which can either lock or open the diff as required, although opinion seems to vary as to how good exactly it is. And in case you were curious, that engine is the venerable EA888, a modern-day masterpiece which has been seen in all sorts of flavours and trims, making everything from around 200 horsepower up to about 400 in concept car guise and around 310 in production road-going variants. Here in the GTI, that was then attached to a choice of 2 gearboxes, either a 6-speed manual or this, for the facelift, a 7-speed DSG dual clutch, replacing the old 6-speed DSG of the Mark 7. As for the rest of this car, it was standard issue Golf, which means that it's pretty much perfect. Though the interior quality isn't amazing, this is no 7 Series in here. For an ordinary, decent, everyday car, I would say it's very good indeed. And even items like this little trim up here, in other cars they might be scratchy plastic, but here they're not, they're nice, soft, alright, probably not real leather, but I honestly don't mind. There are very few surfaces in here that feel particularly cheap. The only one maybe being the grab handle, but even that is fairly solid, doesn't have any flex in it. and it gives you that reassuring notion that German build quality is not simply a bedtime story told to scare children that work in British car factories. In this era, the car was available as either a 3 or a 5-door. You could even get an estate. This one is the sensible option, the 5-door. It has a good amount of room for people in both the front and the back, and the boot is a decent size too. Unlike just about everything else out there, VW resisted the temptation to allow the Golf to simply keep growing and growing to the point where it was no longer really a Golf, this instead being basically the same dimensions as the Mark 5. This one has the optional 19-inch rims on it, but even so, road noise isn't too bad. There's a little bit of firmness to the ride, but generally it's pretty decent. I also happen to think that though not a stunner in the vein of many an Italian hatchback, like the old Alfa 147 or Brera, this instead is a handsome thing. It is fairly restrained, though instantly identifiable as a Golf, if for no other reason than the red GTI badge at the front, which is part of the performance pack too. That money is well spent, and you get the signature items that have marked out the GTI for the last near 5 decades, including the tartan trim inside. I always myself preferred the leather, though this is very, very slowly growing on me. The seats are very nice, comfortable, supportive, and have plenty of adjustment. Izzy is not particularly tall, and one of the reasons she went for this over the later Mark 8 was that in that she couldn't get a comfortable seating position. Over in the center console, you've got a touchscreen display, which can also be operated by a button to the side. This one has the upgraded Audio stereo, which I shall now quickly test. And it's very good. In spite of those upgraded alloys, the ride isn't too busy. It's got a firmness to it. Every now and again it hits a little imperfection in the road and you can feel it, but it's not crashy, it's not unpleasant. This car does not have DCC, which is VW's term for adaptive dampers, dynamic chassis control. And this was actually deliberate on Izzy's part, because having seen a number of my reviews of Golf products over the years, I've said that I think the DCC is partly responsible for the steering feel sometimes not being quite as good as you would like it to be. Now, Izzy and I have been talking on and off for a little while about what car it is that she's going to buy next, because on a few occasions over the last year or so, I have met up with her and her partner Mike, who brought me the Cupra Formentor to review last year. Before this, she had a 1.2 litre Polo making a mighty 90 horsepower. But as somebody that does 20,000 miles a year, she's only had this car for about 6 weeks and already done 3,000, she wanted a few creature comforts, the automatic gearbox, the adaptive cruise control, because when you're doing that kind of mileage, those things are nice. However, she also wanted a bit more power, because she likes to have a bit of fun when the mood takes her. And so, we've talked about the Golf bit of this car. What about the GTI bit? Let's find out. Now, performance is not of the mind-blowing variety. This engine has a little bit of turbo lag in it, but the power is delivered cleanly and smoothly all the way to the 6,500 RPM red line, though sadly not accompanied by a particularly exciting soundtrack. And that is partly because, this being an extraordinarily late car, it, like all post-2018 models, was fitted with a particulate filter and also had to meet stricter noise regs. Shame that. But for a first performance car, this has an awful lot going for it. Now, it is completely and totally bone dry out there. There is not a drop of water on the road, and it's a nice, lovely 17 degrees out there. So these are the conditions in which a front-wheel drive hot hatch will always shine. And today, grip is simply not an issue. If it were wet, things might be different. But it's not. Now, what's the turning circle like? Really good. And let's see what traction is like. First gear. very smooth, very easy. Not struggling at all. Izzy tells me she does have some problems with torque steering this car, but I can't say I'm getting any. Again, might be because there's just so much grip available today. That steering too, yeah, sure, it's not the most feelsome or communicative, but then very few VAG products actually are. However, the car turns in nicely. The wheel isn't overly sensitive. You don't really upset it all that much. There is plenty of mid-corner adjustability, and the thing just gets the business done. It adopts a very natural, happy stance at about the speed limit, and bends like this, well, it really likes. Gearbox is cracking too, nice and responsive. Let's try and use that diff to pull out of a bend. Works well, yeah. Traction control light did just light up there for a moment, but it intervened nicely, smoothly, very progressively. I like this car a lot. And when you're then done having your fun, you pop the gear lever over back into automatic, or if you want sport automatic, and it'll happily do its thing. Even better, I haven't even dented the overall average MPG of 34.6, which is not that bad. So then you may be sat there, like me, looking at this car and thinking, yeah, it's a decent looking thing, albeit perhaps a little bland at the rear, which is why, once she's paid off the finance and everything else, Izzy plans to tart it up a little bit, but beyond that, it's a good, decent thing, well-sized, decent performer, an absolutely fantastic jack of all trades. Exactly what a Golf GTI should be. And to get into one of these today, you'd be paying somewhere in the high teens, maybe low 20s, depending on mileage, specification, so on and so forth. And on that note, not only did Izzy not want the DCC, she also didn't want the sunroof, because those apparently can be problematic, as they usually are in just about every car that they're fitted, although I still love them. So then, why is it that so few people bought these? And how bad exactly was it? To find out, this morning I went on Auto Trader and filtered Golfs sold from 2016 to 2019. Technically, this might have included a couple of really early Mark 8s, but hopefully very few. This being a 2020 also gives you an idea that there was a little bit of crossover. But broadly speaking, that should cover most of the Mark 7.5. Just 139 of these. What instead were people buying? Well, you may already know. That's the Golf R. Those, nearly 450 for sale. Yep, 3-to-1 was the ratio of R to GTI sales. And what exactly did you get? Well, first off, more power. The R made at its peak 310 horses, and at the very end 300 on account of that particulate filter. Although, it is worth pointing out that this makes nearly as much torque. It's down only 7 pounds-feet, or 10 Newton-meters. The big difference though, the R can send its power to all 4 wheels. And therefore, in the all-important 0 to 60, in group tests, and the occasional lap time, the R was quicker. But the R's been around for quite some time. It is an evolution of the old R32 of the Mark IV and Mark V platform, with its mighty VR6 3.2. Fantastic sounding thing, though on account of the increased weight, not really any quicker than the GTI of the day. For the Mark VI onwards, they then moved to a 4-cylinder turbo, as you would get with the regular GTI, and that was one of 2 changes made to the R for the 7th generation, which then made it dominant. The other, and this really was a killer, was the fact that someone somewhere decided they wanted to shift a lot of R's. And so, for the Mark 7, the pre-facelift in particular, if you went down to your VW dealership looking for something like this, they would have said to you, well, yes, of course, sir or madam, you can have a VW Golf GTI. We'd be very happy to sell you one. But what about one of these, the R? It's got more power and 4-wheel drive, don't you know? So, sir, it's quicker off the line, and madam, your children will be safe in it. Here's the thing. You'd then say to the dealer, that's lovely, thank you very much. Oh my God, a bird has just done the biggest on the car I've ever seen. There's a pterodactyl around here, ladies and gentlemen, and it's got an awful diet. Oh my word. I know where the neighbourhood cats have been going. Sorry. You'd say, that's lovely, Gerald, thank you very much, but the R's a lot more money. And he'd say, no sir, or madam, it is not. You get yourself an R, and if you get it on finance, which the vast majority of people of course do, to get into that faster, better equipped car costs you just £20 a month more. In fact, I did hear rumours that for some people the difference was as little as £12 per month. So less than 50 pence per day for another, at the time, 70 horsepower. Bit more torque, all-wheel drive, and a badge that says R. This is why the Golf R went from a model that very, very few people bought in Mark 6 guise to a model that everybody bought in Mark 7 guise. This changed a little bit for the 7.5. The deals weren't quite so aggressive, though curiously, on Auto Trader, the disparity between the R and the GTI is even greater for the later cars than the earlier ones. So, what's the relevance here? Well, Izzy kindly helped me out with this one, because you see, when she went looking for a car, the R was on her radar. But she found, of all the cars that she looked at, every single one of them had a bit of a history. She was clever. She did her checks. She did her CarVertical, and she found out there were many cars being sold, some of which were salvage, some of which were hiding serious issues, and some of which just looked very, very poorly cared for. And this, I suppose, is to be expected when you're looking at a car that could have been had for very, very little money with reasonably serious performance. An R, a well-driven R, is a mightily quick thing. And so, the GTI was the car instead bought by those that felt they didn't need the performance of the R, didn't want it, were happy with what this offered, didn't feel the desire to be that showy or go that fast. And that means today, these can be a much better buy. You're not really even going to save that much more money, simply because these are quite a bit rarer. But you may have an easier time finding a good one. This one, for example, Izzy has been a genius because she bought it from a VW main dealer. It cost really no more than the scraggly, very, very much abused Rs that she was looking at, has just one owner and came with 50,000 miles on the clock, a VW factory warranty, and for about 30 quid a month on top, she got a service pack which not only covers the servicing but also gives her European breakdown cover. And she did that because she worked out that the cost of getting AA road cover for a European road trip was going to cost effectively the same as getting the service pack, only now she gets a service chucked in as well. A very smart purchase indeed. Will it ever be a future classic? I'm not convinced. And if you're a full-on petrol head that just has to have the best thing out there, then of course you're going to go for the R anyway. But if you're not worried about that, do consider a GTI. And to let me sweeten the deal, Izzy is just 20, and to insure this, only £1,000 a year. 50 quid cheaper, in fact, than her Polo with its 90 horsepower. Surprisingly, the R wasn't actually that much more, and I thought she was going to tell me that insurance is exactly why she went for a GTI, but apparently not. They're very safe things. This is a good car. This is the exact kind of car that you'd either buy for your 20-something-year-old child that is now a competent driver and can handle a bit of power, front-wheel drive also being, I think, a bit safer maybe than the adjustable all-wheel drive of the R, counterintuitive though that may seem. Or it's the sort of car that you as a well-to-do man or woman could buy to take you to the station, go to the shops and do this sort of stuff, or maybe that you then pinch from your child when they come home from university and have far, far too much fun in yourself. This is what a Golf GTI should be. It is everything to everyone for not silly amounts of money. And they've proven relatively reliable too. And if they do break, there's a million different places you can get parts from as well. So, there we have it. That is the Mark 7.5 Golf GTI. I want to say a big thank you to Izzy for bringing it out, and as ever, to you for watching. Don't forget to hit the like button, comment down below, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you for the next one. Bye-bye.